We have a couple clips from Life, Liberty, and Levin, which if you've never heard of before, neither have I, so it's okay. You know how in football, quarterbacks have a backup, and then that backup has a backup who almost never plays? That's this guy, but for Fox News. But I did see some of these clips, and they were just too hilarious to pass over, so let's take a look at a few of them.
Democracy. Voting. You know who likes the word democracy the most? Dictators. Fascists, Marxists, autocrats, and apparently the Democrats, who don't really like to practice democracy. You know, they have voting in places like Russia and Iran, Venezuela and Turkey, North Korea, Syria, Cuba, Uzbekistan, Zimbabwe, Somalia.
Until I saw how dumb some of the other clips were, I swear that I thought that this was parody. He's like, you know who loves democracy? All of these non-democratic places. I mean, autocracy, by definition, is a non-democratic government, and the comparison to Russia is wild unless you're applying it to Trump. You know how Putin wins his elections, right? He attacks all the media, calls them fake news and propaganda, so then he and he alone can control the narratives. Who does that sound like in America? We have a representative democracy, which is probably the most efficient form thereof, even if New Age Republicans try to attack it every time they lose. I mean, notice how there wasn't an outbreak of the elections are rigged in 2016, but Trump, who was already wildly unfavorable and was in the middle of mishandling COVID, lost in 2020, and MAGA just can't believe it. It has to be rigged, even though the only proof of election fraud being attempted is by Donald Trump, who denies none of it. Very Russia-esque there. I don't know.
It was a convention of multi-billionaires, oligarchs. Donald Trump, developer builder, built a skyline. He worked with plumbers and electricians. He worked with painters and bricklayers. He worked with tile layers, drywall installers, all the buildings trades, all of them. All hardworking men and women, union, non-union, minority, majority, woman, male, everybody. And he didn't discriminate. What have you done, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama?
Yeah, you know Obama, who just literally guided us out of the Great Recession and expanded healthcare while also preventing insurances from denying you for pre-existing conditions. But you know, Trump, he hired a bunch of people and never paid them. So I guess he's the one who wins this round. Like the faux attempt that Trump is like blue collar and can relate to the middle class is just a tired talking point at this point. We all know his union busting ways, his attempts to not pay his workers, how he discriminated against black workers, and the guy who was born a millionaire turned a billionaire cannot relate to middle or working class people. I'm sorry, do better.
That means nationalizing drug companies. You want to eliminate the oil industry and gasoline. Do you know where electricity comes from? You don't want us to have a choice of what kind of car we can have.
Is someone gonna tell him? Like Fox News proofread this script and was just like, yeah, go ahead. This is another one that I literally thought was parody until I remembered it's Fox News. The bar is just actually this low. There's plenty of ways to generate electricity without gasoline, and that's what's being targeted and worked on. Solar power, biomass, geothermal, and even lesser ways like hydropower and wind. And this guy is just like, I've got the gotcha to end all gotchas here. That electricity you want takes gasoline. I mean, the whole list of questions that he showed on the screen there were ridiculous, and I don't think a single one was founded in any bit of truth. I want to kind of go through them quickly. No one is destroying women's sports. You got to think trans people make up 0.5% of the population, half of 1%. Then a small percent of that are trans females. A small percent of that are trans female athletes. A small percent of that are trans female athletes who compete at a level that's actually like professional or whatever. So it's like you're talking about 13 people here, but whatever, I mean, it's just the destruction of women's sports. Gender mutilation isn't happening for kids. Another lie. A wealth tax would be massive, and Kamala has proposed an unrealized capital gains tax on houses worth at least $100 million, which is great. I mean, no problem there. FTC penalties for price gouging isn't price controls. It's a way to attack price gouging. Single-payer healthcare is used in most developed countries. We're one of few countries that don't guarantee healthcare. She's not proposing the right to vote for immigrants. No Democrat is doing this. This is another silly talking point. Putting a profit motive in medicine incentivizes cutting corners and raising the profit margin rather than raise the quality of care. And reducing the use of oil will massively help the economy. This is such a silly list, truly.